Good morning. Let me begin by relieving you of a concern that some of you might have. You perhaps have learned over the past couple of years that when I'm scheduled to speak on Potluck Sunday, you have to do without the chicken because the restaurants don't open early enough for me to get here and do the chicken too. The good news is that thanks to some prior coordination and advice from the kitchen staff, today you get me and the chicken. Most of you know that I lead a book study group that meets on Wednesday morning at Unity Church of Fort Worth, 1045. That book study was begun years ago by Reverend Bill Nelson when the folks at Truth Guidelines came home to Unity of Fort Worth. I took the study over from him about 15 years ago. I've lost track of the number of books that we have done, but it would certainly be in the several dozen range. I'm reminded each Wednesday morning that whereas insofar as spiritual development is concerned, we ride on the shoulders of giants. But we don't just learn from the spiritual masters, we learn from each other, because the range and depth of maturity and understanding in that Wednesday morning group is truly amazing. One of the books that we did a couple of years ago was The Magian Gospel of Brother Yeshua. I shared some information from that book a few months ago. While I was preparing that talk, I ran across a line that stuck in my head. It was in a section called What I Know About God. It resonated with me because it correlates with A Course in Miracles. It goes like this, Yeshua speaking. He has established a universe in which what we call love works to promote growth, and what we call fear operates as crippling limitation. I do not know, but I strongly suspect that even God himself is growing, evolving, and developing, and that since all consciousness is also his, our growth contributes to his. How about that, folks? Wrap your mind around that idea. The idea seemed somewhat familiar to me. Where had I heard it before? The wife and I joked that although the memory files are all intact right here in our brains, the file retrieval rate's a little slower than it used to be. I finally remembered that it might be from The Voice Celestial by Ernest and Fenwick Holmes. I no longer own that book, but some kind soul had donated it to the Harmony Library, and whoever it was, thank you for that. Both Ernest and Fenwick were excellent poets. I think Fenwick was the best. He likely wrote most of The Voice Celestial. Ernest Holmes, as you know, went on to become very famous as the founder of the religious science movement. This particular piece is attributed to Ernest, but the style is definitely that of Fenwick. It goes like this. In every drop, the sea. In every cell, the universe. In every soul, the life of God. And each contains full power of all. Life does not come in parts, but wholes. There is no separation, no near, no further out, no deeper down or higher up, no void, no yonder, and no hopes that cannot be fulfilled. The power of all obtains in all, and everywhere is here, and here is there. Draw on it if thou wouldst truly be complete and not suffer thirst again. Each soul is drawn from the circuits of the universe, where life and action have their center, and where every point is joined with every point, and each event unites with each event, in sequence after sequence, without end. And all seasons of becoming are unfoldment of events that form a chain to stretch into eternity. And step by step, man walks among the suns and stars, consorting with a host of beings whose existence he has never known until he struck a higher chord in his own soul to which they could respond. Note the line, in every soul, the life of God. There is ample evidence in the scriptures that Jesus understood this concept and used that to effect his so-called healings. No human being up to that time could look past appearances any better than Jesus. It didn't matter whether that appearance was the cripple at the Bethesda pool, the individual being lowered through the roof at one of his talks by the man's friends, the apparently dead little girl. In each of those cases, Jesus was able to look past appearances to the truth that lay underneath. In his marvelous book, It's All God, Walter Starkey reminds us that spiritual healings are the result of altered perceptions. In a process he refers to as double thinking, we can remember reality. It is all God, while dealing with the changeable concepts with which we are presented. To quote Mr. Starkey, the way we can be in the world and not react to it is to perceive that within every person, place, or situation, there's something spiritual that's unchangeable. Within every form or concept, there lies hidden something that is permanent, the presence of God, spirit, or eternal, essential being. I invite you to experiment with that concept the next time you see Donald Trump on television. I didn't say it was going to be easy. Starkey goes on to say that if the unchangeable in a person is perceived by you, that person in turn will express the unchangeable self outwardly. You may think that they have changed, but what's really changed is your own perception of them. Jesus sometimes told those who turned to him for healing and were healed, your faith has made you whole. Of course, it was the combination of their faith and Jesus' perception that did the healing. Both Starkey and A Course in Miracles point out that perceptions are learned. They are created by family conditioning, personal experience, the influence of the collective consciousness or unconsciousness or ignorance, and could even be carryovers from past lives. I once heard someone say, it's our stinking thinking that's got us to where we are today. We may need to take a mental bath, become aware of those perceptions, and retrain them into a concept that Jesus used, one of righteous judgment. Meditation is essential to that process. The Voice Celestial takes the form of an epic poem. The main characters are the Pharaoh, who's seeking answers, the Presence, who's providing those answers, and the Scribe, who knows what's going on between the two. Toward the end of the book, the voice joins in the conversation. The questions and answers asked by the Pharaoh will seem quite familiar to you. They're questions and concerns that we all have about life, about love and friendship, about death, about life after death, and many other things. Each response by the Presence is like a gem reflecting light into the darkness. Let me share with you this one exchange. The Pharaoh, but I can dimly see the future on the cosmic screen. Am I not bound to live, to suffer, and to die as fate decrees? Am I not a victim of the universe? The Presence replies, you have the power to choose from out the past. Reject the evil and with the good stand fast. There are no barriers to him who knows that all he seeks from spirit flows. In pure causation, perfect good exists, and he who faithfully persists in calling on the higher source alone will find the kingdom and the throne. Illusion lies in this, that man accepts conditions as real, even though they may be but consequences of antecedent thought, and can survive no longer if ideas be changed. When the Pharaoh expresses a concern about death, the presence responds. No death can come into the soul of man, though paths may wind through darkest gloom, for God is life, and you are life, and life are one. More closer to him are you than shadow, deeper than the brain that thinks, the heart that beats, than self that loves and feels upon the earthly plane. Yourself, immersed within the cosmic self, can never know an end. The soul of man endures. When the voice speaks about Jesus, it goes like this. Then Jesus came, the last to take his place in that great line of masters of the race, to shed his radiance upon the saints and sages who bowed before the altar of the ages. With quiet dignity, he took his place beside the altar with men of every race and color, of humble ranks or great, the learned, the unlearned, or the potentate. And priests of every faith, apostles who had died for him, and Judas with them too. While dressed in robes of white before the altar, they sang in chorus from the cosmic psalter. The book has an amazing ending. I considered not sharing it with you in order to tempt you to read the book, but the ending demands to be heard, and it goes like this. The Pharaoh, speaking to the presence, I know now whom thou art, thou vision blessed. Thou art my sole self. With thee, celestial guest, I shall expand throughout the firmament. I am thy voice, and with this I am content. The Pharaoh goes on to proclaim, the search is ended. I myself am he who was and is. I am eternity and shall abide forever in the me. In other words, he's discovered that the answers he's receiving come from within his very own self. Most of us were raised in what I've come to see in my later years and after a number of years in New Thought, we basically were raised in a corrupted version of Christianity. There was always that hellfire thing lurking in the background. I understood that my sins were washed away when I was baptized at age 12. I was a little bit concerned about all those sins I had accumulated since then. The Voice Celestial deals with that problem in a section called Heaven and Hell. Listen to this exchange between the Pharaoh and the presence. The Pharaoh. Then I, who have from my early youth been bound by creeds, cut off from truth. Through ignorance I see it well, myself created heaven or hell. The nether regions of despair are fantasies drawn from the air, by sickened minds held in a trance, distracted by their ignorance. The presence replies, you speak the truth. No doom is sealed. The reign of hell has been repealed. At every crossroads build a shrine. The souls of all the earth are mine. There is no power that puts to rout the stalwart mind that will not doubt. In that section of the work, the Pharaoh asks a question that stands at the forefront of all our minds. How shall I pray? The presence answers, prayer is the conscious union of the soul with God, a recognition that the whole is wholly present in the seeming part, around, above, below, within the heart. And in this work, this of prayer the essence, the hour by hour awareness of his presence. The Pharaoh asked, does this include petition for his grace, that he forgive our sins and make a place for souls bowed down with shame and grief, in bitter need for pardon and relief? The presence replies, how slow the mind to cast off ancient creeds, to gain relief by a counting of the beads. Throw off forever the vestments of tradition. God is not won by groveling petition. And if it be that you need health, or friendship, peace of mind, or wealth, make first your union with the source of all. Your word contains the answer to your call. There's a second book contained within the Voice Celestial. It contains sections of all the great religious masters: Buddha, Hermes of Egypt, Moses, Plato, and Pythagoras, and of course Jesus. Let me share with you one quick passage from that section. This is Yeshua speaking. Fear not, he said, it is the Father's will to give his kingdom to you and fill your life with love and peace and joy divine. Ask and receive, all that he hath is thine. Absorb the consciousness of Christ, make thou of him the pattern of thy living now, and lo, thine inner life shall suddenly become aware that thou thyself art he. In a postword, the authors of the Voice Celestial explain the goal of the book: to bridge the centuries that have elapsed since Jesus, the last of the great masters, and link it to the present age. The return to religion is not to Paul, but to Jesus. They point out that it's one of the great anomalies that the authority, theology, rituals, and history of a great religious faith should be founded not on the teachings of the master, but on the concepts of a man who never saw him, did not even converse with his personal disciples for many years, and depended on garbled reports and a psychic experience in setting the pattern of his understanding. Although Paul did not write some of the books in the New Testament attributed to him, his footprint is burned into the records of the history of the church. They go on to say that while the church owes much to Pauline authors and to the beauty of many of his phrases and concepts, he must be looked upon as having been a barrier through which the stream of unfolding revelations of the great prophets could hardly penetrate. Science admits to one master law of light, heat, and power, and gravitational separation. They posit that man controls his universe by obeying its laws. Religion, however, insists on dualism: God and the devil, sin and salvation, heaven and hell, two opposing principles. The more fundamental one still insists on the existence of a personal devil. This dichotomy carries over into law as well. While science only recognizes one master law, Pauline Christianity wants to separate effects from causes, insists that salvation can be achieved by theological rituals and practices, the major Pauline concept being salvation from the consequences of sin. The good news is that we are clawing our way back from distorted concepts and doctrines. We are beginning to acknowledge our history that predates even Jesus. I'm pleased to say that the Unity School of Christianity, Religious Science, and Divine Science are in the front ranks of that effort. The Voice Celestial was copyrighted more than 50 years ago. We've come a long way since then. We have yet far to go. God bless us as we journey on. Thank you.